I could just have one map to bring along on a trip, it would be one of these Atlas Gazetteer style maps. On the front page here we have, basically it's an index, also on the back, which is very handy. If you want to travel or look at this area here, you want page 80. There it is. And this is detail for that area of the state of Oregon. They have fantastic detail. Another neat thing about these is they will have information. For example, are the recreation areas that are listed or shown on the map. Let's use Mount Thielsen Wilderness. That would be at page number 56 right here, and grid number C2, 56 C2. So we go to page number 56 right here, and where 2 comes down and C comes over, we should be at Mount Thielsen Wilderness. So there it is. So if somebody told you you really need to go see Miller Lake in the Mount Thielsen Wilderness, you could quickly find it using this type of a map. Or campground, it will tell you how many campsites are there, if there's a boat launch, fishing, hiking. That type of information is in detail within this atlas. If you want to do some paddling, it will recommend areas and it will give you the coordinates to find that. This is also good for hunting because it breaks down the wildlife areas. Here's fishing. It has each of the lakes and bodies of water. But the greatest part, is just the maps themselves. This has a second map of just the Crater Lake National Park, for example. So if you were going to Oregon and you had this type of a map, you would have all kinds of fantastic resources at your fingertips. No matter what kind of area you're going to visit, no matter if you have a cellular connection or your batteries are dead, you can still use these paper maps. The other thing that this type of a map gives you is a really good broad overview. If you wanted to look from this corner to here, back over to there, using a phone map, you'd be scrolling and zooming in and out, and this you can just see it all in one big piece. Another thing that we really like about these, we mark them up. Here's a place here that we just circled and wrote food. We know that we've stopped there, it had good food, and we actually made a note. It helps us to remember places that we've already visited. You'd think it wouldn't happen, but it has happened to us. We've driven back into lakes, spent hours to get there, and then another trip we wound up hiking into the same lake from a different direction, and we got there and we realized, hey, we've been here before and the fishing wasn't that good. Just like to make notes on these maps. It's also a very cool, almost like a journal. Let's look at the Utah Gazetteer. This one is just a little bit different style. This is an area that we visited along with the good folks at Bean Trailer. We took a caravan type trip. One of the guys marked this for me to help guide us to an area to find another campsite for the group. So it just brings back, cool memories, and also helps us find these places again, years later. We can go back, open the atlas, and revisit some of these awesome spots. It's a great resource, and it's also a really fun thing to go back and look through. Lastly, for maps, I have these 7.5 minute quads, and these are extremely detailed. Each one of these 2-inch by 2-inch squares is a single section or a single square mile. If you want to find abandoned mines and homesteads, things like that. Now that we've looked at maps, let's look at how to do some navigating using a map along with a compass. If you have a map and you don't have a compass, you lose quite a bit of the function of the map itself. And we're going to get into that here in just a second. Let me start by saying a good compass isn't cheap, but a cheap compass is better than no compass. This is one that I keep on my fishing bag at all times. That's another thing, is a compass is only good if you carry it. Quite often when I'm hiking away from camp, this bag is going with me. Even if I don't fish, I will carry things inside this bag and use it as a day pack. The next type of compass is one that you actually sight through, so you see the degrees, and the needle points your route. This is one that I've used in pretty intense compass situations. It's something that you can just quickly bring up to your eye, sight down it, and keep moving. This is probably not the best choice. The best choice for a hand compass using with a map, in my opinion, is going to be at least this style of compass, if not this exact compass. This is a Silva Ranger, and they are, at least through my career, the standard for quality and features. This is the compass that I used for decades, and I don't think it's changed at all. One of the features of this compass is that you can change the declination. Everywhere you travel has a little different declination. True north, magnetic north, there's slight variations in degrees. Here you can see that the arrow on the bezel here is not pointed due north. It's off by about 19 degrees. That's a correction for the way the Earth's magnetic lines, they don't fall due north and south on all parts of the globe. The other thing that this type of compass has is a mirror, which is really nice because you sight into the mirror. You can see the compass face, the bezel, and the needle, and you can sight over the top of the crosshair to line yourself up with a mountaintop or some other feature. You can line up with that, and you can see the exact degrees to that mark. If you didn't have the sight and the mirror, then you look down at the compass, and then you look back along the edge, and you use the edge of the compass the same way. The basic function of the compass is the same. The needle just points north. As long as you know that the needle is pointing north, you know your basic directions: north, south, east, and west. And then the bezel is marked in degrees. Let's look at a couple of real-world situations where you would use the map combined with the compass. The first thing you're going to want to do is orient the map. The top of most all maps is going to be north. If the top of the map is not north, there should be an indicator letting you know that this is an unusual map and north is pointing some other direction. We can use the compass to turn the map until the north is properly aligned. And here we go. Of course, we're inside of a trailer. You want to be away from metal objects. You see how I have the compass lined up on this crease. It could also be lined up over here, right on the edge of that side. But we need to have it perfectly lined up with a north-south line on the map. So again, top of the map is north, and now the compass is not quite right. Or turn it, and there it is. Now this map is properly oriented. Okay, there comes the rain. Okay, so here we are at this campsite, for example. Say I took off and I drove and I got on these roads and I went off this direction and I wound up down here. And now I want to find my way back to this campsite. I would stand at this campground, I would orient the map, and then I would just follow that compass line north until I made my way back to camp. It doesn't have to be an absolute straight line. As long as your line continues to go north, you will find your campsite. Eventually, you would come to this freeway here, Interstate 70, and from Interstate 70, you would be able to find your track that you used in order to get back to the campsite. If you had no compass and you just had the map, you could turn the map in any which direction and you wouldn't know which way is the campsite. Here's a good example of a real simple way to use the map and the compass. If we're camped here at Adele Campground on Miller Lake, and say we took off to go fishing, we walked up the road, we came up this creek here, and then we walked up this Howlett Creek, and the fishing was great, so we stayed on it for quite a while. And then it was time to return back to the campground. If we didn't want to do all this zigzagging, we could simply use the compass. The top of the map is north. We know that if we walk generally north, we're going to run into this road and run back into the lake. Without the compass, you could walk, part way between the creek and the lake. You could get turned around, not know which way, north, south, east, or west, and you could wind up walking the wrong direction and spending a lot of time. Another example would be sitting at camp and having this map along with a compass and knowing that if you walked due south, you would run into this creek. And maybe the plan would be, let's walk from camp, we walk due south, we run into the creek, we'll walk up the creek and do some fishing, then walk back down this creek, do some more fishing. When we come to this creek junction, we'll know that we need to head generally north along it, and we'll come to the road and then find our way back to camp. In other words, we wouldn't have to carry this map with us. We would just get ourselves oriented while we're at camp, and that would give us enough information to use a compass to ensure that we don't get lost walking back to camp. I've been involved in a lot of search and rescues, and if a person would just have a compass and had a basic understanding of how they work, it could be a real lifesaver. Here's another example. Say you were out four-wheeling in this country on these Jeep trails. Typically, your GPS would show that you are here. You have a little indicator, but without it, it could get real difficult. So say your electronics were knocked out on the way back and you had to find your way back here to Mazama. You could use your compass and the map. You could be driving generally southeast and you could correctly assume that you're on this stretch of the road. And if you came to that intersection there, seeing a road that goes nearly due east and one that goes southeast, now you know that you're at this location. You would continue another 2 or 3 miles and you would come to this road here. Using your compass to check the bearings on these roads would help guide you back along this route until you came to your destination of Mazama. With just the map and no compass, you wouldn't know which direction these roads were heading. This classic Silva Ranger compass comes with a really nice little guidebook on how to use a compass. And it's really a nice thing to have along with you on trips. Whenever you set off on a hike or a drive, you should know the general direction of travel that you're taking. If you're just simply trying to find a line, a road, you know that the road is due east. If you keep walking east, you're going to run into the road. That type of function is just basic and essential.